Do you know, it occurred to me that there's one thing that, as a beginner, is really tough to get over, I think, when it comes to bonsai. And is it the wiring? Do we do clip and grow? Is it, do I use fertilizer? Is it when I should pot? Is it which YouTuber should I listen to or which book should I read? Well, no, truthfully, it's none of those. That is not the hardest thing when you're doing bonsai as a beginner. The hardest thing, actually, believe it or not, is Hi, it's Xavier, welcome to a bonsai retreat. Yeah, we're still in the depths of winter and I have a couple of things I'm going to go through with you this Saturday. Not least of all, the answer to that question. And you know what, it may not actually apply just to beginners, because I went to the grand opening of the to the Leatherhead Bonsai Society, and great evening, and there's a video all about it. But we had the great Peter CHAN there, and he said some remarkable things. But do you know what? He took me by surprise by just one thing. And I had this little display out, and I had this tree here, and I also had this tree with me. Now, both of these were sister trees from a pack of 11. You've heard the story many times about how I started with Larch. Anyway, the reason I picked this one and also this one was because they represented probably my first efforts as a beginner, and I really didn't do much more with them as they developed. I sort of moved on to other trees and applied techniques as I learned to them. And so these tended to stay pretty natural, i.e. broken or damaged by the wind, by my children, by cricket, by whatever. Really, I haven't done that much care and attention to them, and I was trying to bring them down as a display to show people this is how bonsai can look if you don't have any experience. I was trying to be encouraging. Well, guess what Peter CHAN did?
I'm an ancient dinosaur, you know.
Anyway, Peter, in his usual style, came along and he went, "These are yours, aren't they?" And to be fair, I was really proud. I was waiting to see what he was going to say about it. And I mean, I love this. I love this whole approach. And in fact, I probably have become just a little bit tunnel blindness. I think we've actually done a thing on bonsai tunnel blindness, because this is one where I like that, but he immediately looked and went, And he grabbed a branch and he went, "Do you know what?" And he did this and he started pulling it down, and I got very nervous, and he pulled it down and he goes, "Do you know what? This is really set up for a cascade, isn't it?" And then he wandered off. Well, my flabber was gasted, so to speak. I was a bit of a loss. I actually felt, and I'm sure we've all felt this, we don't mean to, but I felt a bit narked. I thought, this is how it is. Didn't you read the notice? This is what it's supposed to look like. And I think this epitomises what the biggest challenge I think bonsai beginners, as they're moving and progressing, face, especially if they're starting to think about showing their trees, whether it be having people coming and looking at them, or moving from that progress of taking them from their back garden where they can hide away and enjoy them, to actually letting other people look at them and talk about them. And that's what we're going to be looking at today, because I definitely fell foul of that. I had to go back home, look at myself hard in the face, look at the tree, and I still look at it and go, I like it, I like the movement. But I looked back, and of all the trees that I've talked about in the bonsai retreat, this one's featured a number of times, and all the others have had comments of various kinds. This one actually tends to get overlooked. Now, I'm sure some of you will be going, "Oh, I love it as it is," and you'll be putting comments down there. Well, I'm going to take the advice of someone who has lots and lots of experience, and though I like it, and though I don't have to do anything with it, I'm actually thinking I want to progress this. I want to change this into something more than what it is now, and I want it to get a wow factor. In fact, it's a bit like the ficus I had a year or two ago, when I went, am I going to cut this big branch off or not? And I cut this off and did a little YouTube short, and lots of people looked at it, and I had a lot of diverse opinions about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a little bit of Rafia on this, and it's been soaking in water most of the morning. And the reason why we use Rafia, well, I prefer to use Rafia, is it's reusable, recyclable. It's great for the environment or whatever. And the best thing is once the Rafia dries, it dries tighter. It means it can protect this very, very old 22, 23-year-old bark, and also allow me to perhaps manipulate and bend down a little bit more. But either way, I think this tree is going to get a bit of a face over. So if you want to join me for that, we'll keep following. But there is one other surprise that you're going to see, and it's going to relate to something I did with a larch forest way back in summer. But more of that in a minute. Okay, well, quick as a flash, you see that I've actually got the Rafia all then applied. These are the two vulnerable points here, bending these down. Remember, these haven't been manipulated ever. These are 20 years old, these branches, so there is some weakness in there, despite the fact that my heart nearly fell out my mouth when, say, Peter Chan just went, "Oh, you should do a literati." So I've got it on there. Do I need to put the protection on there? Well, you know what? We've seen how this larch can bark up and get really, really sort of woody. So in many ways I say no, not necessarily have to do it. And I've done lots of larch where I certainly don't put Rafia on. But because, well, it's a bit of a special tree for me, because I do recognise there is potentially a vulnerability, and I do want to protect it. So I'm going to take that extra precaution. But as a rule, do you have to do larch? Probably not. Again, there'll be some of you going, "Zav, you are definitely in the middle of winter now, and I know in your previous videos you've tried to persuade people to sort of avoid doing wiring and stuff like that right now." And yeah, hands up, yeah, I have, and generally, no, I won't. But I'm seeing more and more people successfully in the UK, in this sort of climate, happily bending and wiring their trees. Does that mean that I'm going to go on and start doing that as a rule? Probably not. Need to say, it's only the two main branches that I'm going to be wiring out. All this refined, finer stuff, that'll get left for later in the year. Certainly when I can see what buds we've got. So I need to apply some wire to this, and let's see if Peter Chan was right. And in fact, while I'm putting the wiring on, I'm going to talk to you about the fun I have with throwing together larch forests. And the reason I'm going to tell you this is because in spring, well, Jelle and I had an idea about creating a big sort of 20+ tree forest from some of these 22, 23-year-old larches I've got in my garden. And he started doing the early planning stages with me. In fact, shall I give you just a secret glimpse of something you could expect in a couple of months' time?
And then all of a sudden it becomes more interesting and more dynamic. And if you do that, keeping in mind that your biggest tree is going to be probably at about a third.
So as you can see, Jelle and I have definitely got some plans, and though I'll be doing the work in spring, I'm sure he'll be looking from afar to see whether I've done it okay. But that brought me to something that I do want to talk about as well, that actually relates to larch and is also a big beginner thing: creating forests. I've never ever applied rules, and I've said, you know what, just throw them in. And many times you'll see forests just like the one you're looking at soon, where trees are out this, and you know, the more I look at it, they really aren't natural. So anyway, let's go back to summer and just have a little look at me pruning and trying to improve one of those forests that I put together. Now I'm pretty sure this got planted up in 2022, potentially 2021. I did two forests. One of them there is a video about. Principle's the same if you want to know how I put it together. And yeah, it's the trees are from a batch of 2-year-old saplings from 2015, and then there's this little one here, which is my first ever successful larch cutting. And as you know, if anyone's watched my channel for any period of time, poor you, you'll know that larch for me are very, very notoriously difficult to get them to take. I think I've got about 3 in total that have ever been a success. So I'm actually pruning this for the first time this year. I want to remove some of this old dead wood and get the moss sorted out and just generally get this looking nice. And really at this stage all we're looking to do is to remove stuff that is definitely not going to be part of it. I've got a bud up here that I don't want, so I'm going to remove that. We've got, if you look in here, you've actually got a bud there and a bud there. So I actually want those. I want to see if I can get growth from there. Underneath it we've actually got this low branch, which is actually quite interesting. I could let this shoot continue to grow out, what I'm actually going to do is just bring it back a little bit to a preferred bud and then concentrate on these. So I want buds pretty close in. We've actually got one just there and one on the other side, so I'm going to go for those. And on this long one, got a bud there and a bud there, so we'll cut there. That is the first of the pruning done. I'm going to continue to work up the tree. See this, I'm going to continue to grow to thicken. Don't know if you noticed here, but it's actually got some really interesting shari stroke deadwood feature up there, and that's unusual with the larch or many of the deciduous varieties, but that's actually happened quite naturally. And yeah, so and under there it continues up here. So yeah, really quite like that. It makes for a very interesting tree. Okay, well there we go. We've got this one all done up, this down. We've got some better pad definition between, really thinning out. Now it can be difficult to do this in the middle of summer. A lot of the time we've got lots of growth and we can't see it. And you know, if you can't see it properly, rather than risk, you know, destroying potential buds or branches you want in the future because you can't see them properly, you can wait. Just cut back to profile and go in there really hard when we get in there in the autumn time, once we start seeing what actually has happened, once all the growth comes off, or early spring, which is another time I'll do it. So don't worry if it just feels too much for you to be able to do it properly without causing more harm or damage. So I suppose what we want to do now is look at this. Do I keep that as is? And I'm not really that fussed on it like that, so I'm going to cut it down a bit, because this would all break away, or just accept that actually. Now what I can do with this is just take off a load of the bark on this. Okay, that's well and truly cooked. A little bit more realistic, I think. Well, got that all pruned up and it's all back in shape and, you know, not looking too bad. I'm not sure whether this detracts. I might need something in the front there, but I also need this little tree to grow taller. When I look in the camera, I like the perspective looking at it. It looks like you've got a snapshot from the centre of a forest bed. Got all the moss off, got rid of that big ugly dead tree. Instead, got my little sleeping man on his big pot of sake, I would imagine. I think that makes all the difference. What do you think? Do you like that, or would you prefer to have that back again? And we got rid of that great big dead larch that just wrecked it, whether it was front or back. Now suddenly we've got a focal point, something that draws our eye, surrounded by a variety of older larch trees in different stages and states. And I love the fact that he's found this little baby sapling to sleep under. Okay, well hopefully you saw how the forest ended up, and truthfully I think what's going to end up happening is I'll be pulling a number of those trees out and putting them a lot closer together, or indeed they're going to become part of this 20+ tree massive larch forest plantation that I'll be putting together in early spring. Tell you what, if you want to see that, definitely hit the bell notifications. Please subscribe. It's going to be good, and as I say, Jelle definitely features in a few of the clips. So I've got the wire on, and this is the moment of truth, because I'm now going to start bending this here on. Now, oh, by the way, if you want to see how I did the raffia, lovely raffia job, isn't it? I've got a great video, have a look in the description, shows it up close and how to do it really good. Because you want it to look good. So I've got the coils going that way, which means I'm going to be bending that way. And now I want to be very, very careful how I do this. And just start, because this is going to be very weak. And I want to be bringing this down and around towards the tree. So let me get on and start doing my my bending. I've got to concentrate. You've seen me bend before, so I'll come back when I've got the shape I want. Okay, well, hopefully you can see what Peter Chan saw, and hopefully that's what he meant. Anyway, I've created this this whole different I don't know, is it dynamic? But certainly does that look 100% better than what was originally there, which I loved. But now that I've seen this, I'm absolutely over the moon, because I'm going to grow this further out, continue to grow here. I've got this whole apical region which I'll be able to create, and also further down here. So I can actually thicken this tree out if I want, and it actually still fits in this beautiful Dawn Isaac ceramic I've got. Now, this wouldn't have happened if I hadn't had the courage to actually reflect when someone, certainly someone who knew what they were doing, or had a lot of experience, went, oh, couldn't you just do this? And just put aside my own prejudices about the fact that all this time I've had this tree and it's wonderful and it's great and I love it. Sometimes we have to challenge ourselves. Sometimes we have to say to ourselves, listen, we don't have to always follow the advice. But in this case, you know what, I'm glad I did. So that biggest fear, that biggest hurdle that many of us at the lower level of bonsai face, certainly if we haven't done any formalized training, is finding out or recognizing, where do I go from next with the tree that I've designed? You know, so you take it from something that's good to actually, I think with a little bit of wire, something that's at the next level. And I hope you agree with me, because certainly now, I was a bit nervous half an hour ago, I think that's really good. Now this one, nowhere near as much work has to happen. It's a much more unusual one. There's a lot of interest down the roots down here. The bark, same age as the one you've just seen, same conditions, but for some reason the bark on this has really, really worked well, and all the way up. So that's already an interesting feature. The only real issue, I mean, we've got a little bit up here, and we've got this branch here. The only real problem one that looks a bit odd is this actually one here. And I'm thinking of just doing this and bringing it down like that. And we'll have this horrible knuckle, but we have that anyway. But what it'll allow me to do is to just create potentially a little bit of growth or something further down, perhaps to balance the tree. I don't know. So I'm going to perhaps just put a little bit of wire on there, maybe just rotate around, because what would be nice is if I could actually create something that covers this area here. Otherwise, the other option is that that gets removed entirely at a later stage. We just have this part of the tree, but really it's the bark that's just so interesting here. And sometimes even I say it's a bit difficult to know where to go next. It's great big long there, so I'm just going to turn that in and bring the profile in just a little bit. So let me do that and we'll see what you think afterwards. Okay, well, I've actually taken this one further upwards, so we're going to have stuff growing up, potentially create a much heavier crown right across. I'm actually going to be taking it out of this pot, I think in April, and put it into a deeper one. Both of these trees could actually do with what I call a bit of a rejuvenation burst. In other words, ignore them for a couple of years, but in a much more healthier environment. So not pot bound, get lots and lots of fertilizer, and just allowed to remember what it's like to be a free reigning tree for a while before I bring it back, because I actually want this to put on lots as I do the other one. So we'll give that a spin. You can't hide that, but hopefully by bringing these upwards, it means it's easier for me to create sort of distraction branches that will actually take your eye away from that. I think even now it's not so obvious. Certainly hope not. So there it is. The bark's beautiful on this, and there's potential in there even. I think what would have to happen is either this front root here, or this front root here will get removed. And again, I think I'm going to start looking into that when I put that into some more soil. I think you'll see this as a longer term project. How about I do with both of these? I do a bit of time lapse over 1, maybe 2 years, and you'll get to see it in a couple of years' time. I'm still hanging around then, it'd be worth seeing. And of course, there's this one. I'll give this a spin actually, you didn't get to see this. I really like this. Again, I do think this can come out of this shallow pot and get put into a deeper pot, healthier soil, and let it regrow, because I want actually to be a lot more structure and a lot more shoots on this, and certainly the last couple of years it has reduced, and I've done some bending, so it will benefit in spring from that. We're going to be able to create layers now from here and definition, and it'll actually start looking like it's been properly sort of, dare I say the word designed, but yes, I know it's a character of what we might see in nature. There you go, this is from the back. That's quite interesting, but a lot more haunting, and certainly I think it makes a bigger impression. And sometimes it's about giving people that wow factor, you know, enough that they'll stop and look and see the way the branches go down. And I'm really glad I tried this. So I took on the challenge myself of the most difficult thing for a lower level beginner bonsai to do, and that is to listen to some feedback and see past my blindness and the fact that I've had a tree that's lasted for ages, which has been untouched, and almost be proud of the fact, and rather look at it and go, but I can improve it. And it's got nothing to do with pride or humility or anything. It's about taking another step forward and saying someone else has seen something in this, and maybe they've seen something more than I have. So you tell me. It'll be interesting to see when the shoots start coming out on this. But otherwise, if you've enjoyed this, please, big thumbs up. I think we've still got a good few more weeks before we're going to actually get into the proper spring growing side of things. We're in for another couple of weeks of cold. This will stay protected. It'll go down to the greenhouse. It has just had wire on, or indeed I may actually have it in the cold part of the shed where there is light. But it'll be fine, I know it will be. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how this develops. Hopefully you did too. Get your comments down there. I know a lot of you will have things to say either about this or indeed about that little forest we got to have a little look at. There's going to be a lot of forest type work, as well as root on rock, which you saw last week. Got some big stuff planned. And as I said, if you love watching Jelle growing bonsai, then definitely you're going to be wanting to see when I start doing my forest creation. It's going to be massive, and it's going to have lots of old trees in it. So, apart from that, this is actually a pretty good video for you to watch if you are bored and cold. Otherwise, happy bonsai and God bless. Cheers.